How to be your own health advocate Rachel sat in the sterile waiting room of Queen Elizabeth Hospital, fidgeting with the corner of a crumpled medical form. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. The fluorescent lights hummed like tired bees. She shifted in the plastic chair, her eyes scanning the same poster she'd read 3 times. Know the signs. Stroke is a medical emergency. It wasn't a stroke. At least, she didn't think so. But it wasn't nothing either. Rachel was tired. Not just tired like, I stayed up too late, or too many deadlines tired. This was bone deep, unshakable tired. The kind that curled around your ribs and sat heavy behind your eyes. She had stopped calling it fatigue, this was something else. A fog that dulled her mind and made her limbs feel like sandbags. She had seen 3 doctors already. 3 different ones. All had kindly, efficiently, and dismissively chalked it up to stress. Work pressure, modern life, maybe low-level anxiety. Try yoga, one had suggested. Another gently handed her a leaflet on mindfulness and self-care. Rachel had tried it all. Yoga, journaling, green smoothies, even a week without caffeine. But still the brain fog, the dizziness, the unspoken alarm bell in her gut. Now, here she was again, sitting under bright lights in a room that smelled like disinfectant and cold air, waiting for yet another name to be called. She wasn't here for reassurance. She wasn't here for someone to pat her on the head and say, "You're fine." She was here for answers. She closed her eyes for a second, listening not to the nurse's footsteps or the shuffling magazines, but to the quiet voice deep inside her that had refused to be ignored. Something was wrong. And this time, she wasn't going to pretend it wasn't. It had started slowly. At first, Rachel couldn't even pinpoint when things began to shift. One morning she'd walked into the kitchen and forgotten why. She laughed it off, blamed it on multitasking. Brain fog, no big deal. Everyone had those days, right? Then came the fatigue. It wasn't ordinary tiredness. It was the kind that sank deep into her bones and made getting out of bed feel like lifting concrete. She'd nap and wake up feeling no better. At work, she stared at the screen, rereading emails like a broken record. Then came the joint pain. Her knees, her wrists, her fingers random, unpredictable. Some days she'd struggle to open a jar. On others, she limped for no clear reason. Friends shrugged. You're overwhelmed. It's probably burnout. You've been pushing too hard. You just need a good vacation. She nodded along, forced a smile, even made a list of beaches she might visit. But deep down, her gut twisted. A little alarm bell kept pinging beneath the surface, muffled by everyone else's reassurances. Even she started to believe them. Maybe she was dramatic. Maybe she was chasing symptoms that didn't exist. She downloaded meditation apps, took long walks, switched to decaf. Still, the fog rolled in thicker. She found herself putting the milk in the pantry and forgetting conversations mid-sentence. She missed her train stop twice in 1 week. Her calendar became a stranger meetings she couldn't remember scheduling, tasks half finished. The worst part wasn't the symptoms. It was the slow erosion of certainty. That quiet question at the back of her mind, what if this isn't just stress? Her gut whispered again. Something wasn't right. And this time, it wasn't going to shut up. The clock blinked 2:47 a.m. Rachel lay on her side, eyes wide open, her pillow damp with frustration. Sleep had become a stranger, always close, never staying. Her body ached, her brain buzzed with fatigue, but her thoughts wouldn't rest. So she gave in. She reached for her phone, screen lighting up the room like a beacon. With hesitant fingers, she opened the browser and typed extreme fatigue, memory loss, joint pain, brain fog. A tidal wave of articles flooded the screen. Anemia, thyroid imbalance, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disorders, chronic fatigue syndrome. One article led to a medical forum. Stories from women across the globe echoed her symptoms almost word for word. They'd all been told it was just stress. Some had waited years before getting diagnosed. Rachel sat up straighter. Her heart beat faster, not with panic, but with recognition. There was a pattern here, a map, and her body was trying to follow it. She wasn't crazy, she wasn't lazy, and she definitely wasn't just overwhelmed. A strange feeling bloomed in her chest, not fear, but something fiercer, like a whisper rising to a shout. You know your body better than anyone else. It startled her how loud that voice was in the silence. Her intuition, the one she'd buried under politeness, prescriptions, and people-pleasing, was roaring back. She stared at her screen, at all the data, stories, and studies. Maybe she couldn't name the problem yet. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't imagining this, and she wasn't done fighting. Rachel sat on the edge of the examination table, her phone clutched tightly in one hand. In the other, a small notebook pages filled with dates, symptoms, sleep patterns, and everything she'd tracked since the fog first rolled in. This was her 4th GP in 8 months. The doctor entered briskly, glancing at her chart. Middle-aged, polite, efficient. He didn't even sit before asking, "Still experiencing fatigue?" She nodded. "And joint pain, brain fog, memory issues," he continued, already scribbling. He looked up with a classic gentle smile. "It could be stress-related. Have you considered mindfulness or therapy? Maybe a change in diet?" Rachel felt her stomach twist, but not with fear this time. "I've tried all that," she said quietly. The doctor blinked. "It can take time." She met his gaze, voice trembling but steady. "I've given it time. I've done the yoga, the green smoothies, the breathing exercises. I've been polite, but I'm not okay. I know it. I live in this body, and I need you to stop treating me like I'm imagining it." The doctor paused, a beat longer than usual. "I'm not here for advice," she continued. "I'm here for answers. I want tests, blood work, thyroid panel, autoimmune screen, everything." Another pause. He looked at her, really looked this time. Then a small nod. "All right, let's order some labs." Rachel exhaled, not relief yet, but something close. A crack of possibility. She didn't know what the tests would show, but this was the first time someone had truly listened. Something had shifted, not in her body, not yet, but in the room. And more importantly, in her. The days crawled. Rachel kept her phone within reach at all times in the windowsill while washing dishes, tucked under her pillow at night, in her hand like a lifeline, while watering the little basil plant that refused to die. Hope came in flashes. Maybe the test would reveal something concrete, something real, a name, a reason. But doubt slithered in too. What if they find nothing? What if it really is all in my head? What if I'm wasting everyone's time, including mine? Her confidence, hard won in the doctor's office, started to erode. She caught herself rehearsing apologies in the mirror. "Sorry to bother you again, maybe I overreacted." She even hovered over the clinic's number, thumb trembling, ready to cancel the follow-up appointment. Maybe it was better not to know. Better to stop poking at shadows. The waiting was its own kind of sickness. Sleep came in shallow doses. Her brain refused rest, circling the same questions like crows. Her symptoms didn't change, still the dragging fatigue, the odd twinges in her joints, the fog that made reading a sentence feel like climbing a hill. But then, on a grey Wednesday morning, while folding laundry she didn't remember washing, the phone rang. Rachel froze. She stared at the screen for a second. Then two. Queen Elizabeth Hospital. She picked up, heart racing. "Hello, is this Miss Harrow?" "Yes," she croaked. "We have your results back," the voice said, calm and clinical. "And we'd like you to come in and discuss them with the doctor." Not over the phone. That meant something. The ground beneath her shifted again, this time toward clarity. Rachel sat across from the doctor, heart thudding like it wanted to escape her chest. He glanced at the chart, then met her eyes. "Severe iron deficiency anemia," he said, "and early signs of hypothyroidism. Your thyroid's sluggish. No wonder you've been feeling the way you have." Rachel blinked. She wasn't sure if she wanted to cry, laugh, or leap across the room and hug him. Not because it was good news. It wasn't, but it was real. "So, I wasn't imagining it?" she asked, her voice a little too small. He gave her a kind smile. "No, you weren't. And it's a good thing you pushed for tests. Many people wouldn't have." She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding for weeks. "I wasn't making it up," she whispered to herself, barely audible, as if saying it out loud might shatter the moment. Vindication had never felt so quiet. She finally had a name for the invisible weight she'd been carrying. It didn't fix everything, not yet, but it explained it. And sometimes, that's enough to begin again. Rachel's days began to look different. Iron supplements lined her bathroom shelf like tiny promises. Her plate now glowed with leafy greens, beans, and iron-rich foods she'd once ignored. She still felt tired, but it was a healing tired, not the hopeless kind. She stopped pushing through exhaustion, stopped treating rest like a reward, and started seeing it as survival. Some days, she still faltered, cancelled plans, slept through alarms. But now, instead of guilt, she offered herself grace. She journaled every morning, nothing poetic, just honest. Still tired today, but I made eggs and drank water. Small win. At night, she logged into a small online group. Other women, other stories, all different symptoms but the same exhaustion of not being believed. She started posting too. Not just about her story but reminders to others. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to take up space. One woman replied, "Thank you. I thought I was crazy." Rachel smiled. She was no longer just surviving. She was rebuilding with truth, with boundaries, and with the kind of fierce self-respect she never knew she needed. Rachel sat by the rain-speckled window, warm mug in hand, a notebook open in her lap. She took a deep breath and began to write, "Dear me, you weren't dramatic. You weren't overthinking it. You weren't lazy or seeking attention. You were tired and trying to tell the world something was wrong. You were brave to keep asking, brave to speak up, brave to go back again and again and again. You were right to listen to your body, right to trust your gut. I'm proud of you for staying in the fight, even when it got lonely. Love, me." She closed the notebook gently, tears welling, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from peace. She still had off days. Days when fatigue tapped on her shoulder like an old acquaintance. Days when brain fog returned for an unwelcome visit. But Rachel was different now. She didn't panic. She didn't spiral. She listened. She tracked patterns, honored her boundaries, and followed up when things felt off. She'd learned how to trust the quiet wisdom in her bones, the voice that says, "This matters. Keep going." Because she'd learned the most powerful truth of all. Healing isn't just about medicine, it's about believing yourself. Doctors are experts, but you are the expert of you. Listen to your body. Stand up for it. You have a right to be heard and healed. Moral lesson. You're not difficult. You're your own best advocate. Follow for more health stories that matter. Subscribe for stories that empower, inform, and uplift.